before swords, before fists, before legends, there was the pole. You can picture it, a field of wooden posts rising like teeth from stone, spaced in stubborn patterns. No rails, no safety nets, no mercy, just wood, height, and the thin line that separates confidence from a bruise, or worse. This is the diagram pole, sometimes called the Plum Blossom Poles. It's a training ground, a test, and for those who faced it, a mirror. What you see on top of a pole isn't just balance, it's small decisions made again and again until they become automatic. This script walks you through what it is, why Shaolin monks used it, how the diagrams shape movement, and what it taught that no other drill could. Picture the poles close up. The wood grain catches the light. You feel the slight give underfoot. Each post is placed with intention, distance measured in steps, angles calculated for footwork, spacing that forces a rhythm. From a few feet away, the arrangement looks almost decorative, like a garden of sticks. Up close, it becomes a language. Each pole represents distance, rhythm, foot placement, and survival under pressure. The monk above the ground is suddenly compelled to stop thinking in infinite options and start moving in exact ones. Hesitation becomes tangible. If you pause, the pole will punish you. That's the point. Why would anyone put someone on a raised stake and call it training? Because Shaolin didn't train for ideal conditions. The real fights weren't on a flat open field with space to maneuver. They happened in courtyards, on narrow stairways, through doorways cluttered with debris, among crowds where retreat was limited. The diagram pole compressed all that chaos into a controlled environment. It recreated the pressure of being boxed in, but it also removed the entanglements of terrain. On the poles, there was no room to pivot into safety. Forward and sideways had to be considered as part of every step. The pole taught a monk to fight without retreat, to strike without overreaching, and to move without wasted motion. And because the stakes were real, fear was amplified, intentionally. If you could execute under that fear, you could execute in a real fight. The poles aren't randomly arranged. They follow diagrams, patterns laid down to cultivate specific kinds of movement. Some diagrams force linear progression, step, strike, step, strike. Others press you into circles, demanding pivots and centrifugal footwork. Certain patterns are arranged so jumping isn't an option. Every movement must be earned through balance and subtle shifts. Imagine a formation where the only safe foot placements are offset by slight angles that pull you into a turn. This pushes you to develop a constant forward pressure while maintaining your center. Every layout functions like a diagnostic. It reveals where your footwork collapses, where your timing slips, where your rhythm breaks. The poles don't teach technique and abstraction, they teach the consequences of your choices. Training on the diagram pole begins at ground level. No one was tossed up there on day one. You start low, stance and breath first. The emphasis is on body awareness. You learn how your feet relate to hips, how breath steadies micro-adjustments, and how tiny weight shifts can prevent a fall. Early exercises are almost painfully simple. Stand, hold your posture, feel the wood under your soles. Only after mastering stillness do you progress to motion, slow walking, controlled turns, deliberate transfers of weight. At this phase, there are no weapons, no speed, no strikes. The goal is a kind of quiet competence. Then comes walking with intention, then the addition of basic strikes and evasions. Weapons change the equation entirely. The staff, or gun, is a central weapon in Shaolin training, and it becomes a terror on the poles. With the staff, your balance must account for extended reach, shifting momentum. Swing too hard, and the momentum pulls you off center. Stop too soon, and your strike lacks bite. The staff demands precision, momentum controlled, recovery instant, and strikes that stop exactly where intended. Imagine spinning a broom on the tip of a nail. Every flourish needs to be countered by an equal measure of return. A mistimed swing on a pole doesn't just blemish an opponent, it threatens your own standing. That's why advanced practice is ruthless. Power without control is punished immediately. On the poles, arrogance and brute force are luxuries you can't afford. This training wasn't about spectacle. It wasn't performance to impress a crowd. It was preparation for conditions where hesitation meant harm. The diagram pole exposed panic. Many monks never moved past this stage, not because they lacked strength or skill, but because the poles revealed a different weakness, the inability to keep calm when stakes feel high. The test didn't teach bravery. It revealed whether bravery already existed. Those who passed weren't merely more skilled with forms, they were entrusted with deeper knowledge, with secrets and methods reserved for those steady enough to handle them. Those who failed were sent back to the ground to rebuild foundations, or they found other paths where the demands differed. Imagine standing there, wind whispering, wood slightly damp, the weight of your breath loud in your ears. Opposite you, another monk finishes a turn and fixes his gaze. There's no clapping, no cheering. The only sounds are the subtle creak of timber and the controlled breathing of people practicing the art of doing less to gain more. The diagram pole trains economy of movement. On that constrained platform, every inch of motion must justify itself. If your foot lands too wide, you expose your center. If your hand reaches too far, you lose the anchor that keeps you upright. Even defense becomes offensive. Small evasions set up counters that are precise and efficient. The diagrams themselves, call them maps, also teach sequence. In a courtyard fight, you don't have the luxury of random responses. Diagram patterns force you into chains of behavior. Place your foot here, shift your weight there, deliver a strike that follows this angle. Over time, those chains become reflex. You don't think left or right, you feel it and move. That's the dangerous advantage the poles impart. Your body learns directional flow, how to keep forward pressure without sacrificing balance, how to turn a trapped retreat into a controlled reposition. The diagrams hide lessons in geometry. Angle equals opportunity, flow equals control. There's also an emotional curriculum. Humility is carved into the pole's routine. You might think you move well on the ground, but the poles are unforgiving. You'll be humbled frequently. That's the method. Strip away ego through repetition until your nervous system learns the right patterns. And when fear comes, because it will, you learn how to let it become information rather than an obstacle. Fear makes your senses sharp. The pole teaches you to use that sharpening instead of flinching from it. Now, not every monk met the diagram pole the same way. Some skirted around it, preferring training that emphasized other skills. Others faced it and failed, then returned to work on basics, stance, breath, timing. But those who succeeded, who could cross a field of poles carrying a staff, trading strikes with a partner without falling, were rare. They carried a kind of quiet authority. They were trusted with deeper techniques and with the mantle of teaching others. You can almost see the logic. If you can stay steady when the world is literally trying to dislodge you, you've proven a composure worth passing on. Why should you care? Because the diagram pole is an extreme lens that reveals something universal, practice that makes you reliable under pressure. Today, the diagram pole remains in some places, not as museum pieces or ornaments, but as active tools for training. They remind practitioners that Shaolin Kung Fu was built above the ground, literally and metaphorically, where hesitation has nowhere to hide. How distance trains decision-making, how rhythm disciplines panic, how forced constraints reveal true skill. The pole doesn't make saints or legends. It simply compels you to find steadiness in a place designed to disturb it. That's the harsh grace of the diagram pole, and why, for centuries, its wooden posts have remained an unforgiving, necessary truth of Shaolin training.